Hello, we will be doing topic 2 notes for geometry today, and we will be covering simplifying radical expressions. So, simplifying a radical, you're going to want to create a factor tree. And when you create a factor tree, you find factors for the number under the radical. You're going to create pairs, and you're going to pull them out. So pull out pairs. And then anything left over stays under the radical. Alright, so let's go ahead and give some of these a shot. Let's start with number 1. So number 1, we have the square root of 24. So we're going to start with making our factor tree. So we need two numbers that multiply to 24. So let's do 2 and 12. 2 is a prime number, so I'm going to go ahead and leave 2 as it is. 12 I can simplify further though. So I have 2 and 6, 2 once again, and then 6 is 2 and 3. Alright, so I made my factor tree and I made it down to all the prime numbers. Now I'm going to create pairs. So we have a pair of 2's and then we have a 2 and a 3. So we only have one pairs. And we're going to pull out that pair. And when I say pull it out, that means it's going to go in front of our radical. So now we have 2 root, and the two numbers left over, they're going to stay underneath and they're going to be multiplied. So then we want to make sure we simplify that further to 2 root 6. Okay? Okay, let's try another one. So this negative 3 out front, we want to make sure we remember that at the end, but we're still going to start with our factor tree. So 50, let's see, we have 5 and 10, 5's a prime number, 10, 5 and 2, and we can't simplify those numbers any further down. Alright, so now I'm going to try and find a pair. We have a pair of 5's. So we're going to pull out 5's and leave the 2. So pull out the 5 and leave the 2 underneath. And remember, I said we don't want to forget about that negative 3, so that's still going to stay out front and it's being multiplied to the 5. So let's go ahead and simplify that. Will give us negative 15 square root of 2. Okay. Alright, and let's try this last one, 192. So remember, when you're creating your factor tree, you can really choose any two numbers that multiply to whatever number you're working with. I decided to go with 6 and 32. They were kind of larger numbers, but if you saw different numbers, that's not necessarily wrong. You can choose any numbers as long as they multiply to whatever's underneath the radical. So 6 and 32, 6 will go down to 3 and 2, and we can't simplify those anymore. And then 32 gives us 8 and 4. 8 goes down to 2 and 4. 2 is a prime number, and we have two 4's here. I can simplify those down even further, but if you have a pair of numbers, if you see a pair of numbers, you can still circle that even if it's not simplified fully. Alright, so I have a pair of 4's, and then I have a pair of 2's. So I'm going to pull out both the 4 and the 2. and then we want to multiply those numbers. So we're multiplying them on the outside of the radical, and then we have our 3 left over. We didn't circle the 3, so we want to make sure that stays under the radical. So now we simplify and multiply the 4 and the 2 together. So 8 root 3. Alright, so now I would like you to pause the video and try number 4, 5, and 6. So these are you tries, and I would like you to try them before seeing the solutions. Alright, so now that you've tried them, here are the solutions. Maybe they show up. There they are. Alright, there's the solutions to 4, 5, and 6. Go ahead, take a look at those. If you need to pause the video to actually look at the solutions and not just the answers, you may do so. Alright, dividing with radicals. Alright, so if we have a square root of some number a over b, we can simplify that to the square root of a all over the square root of b. Doing that allows us to take smaller numbers and simplify them using a factor tree, or if they're perfect squares. So you don't have to worry about the whole fraction. You can simplify it to 2 different radicals. So we have 7, which is the square root of 9 over 25. I can go ahead and simplify that to the square root of 9 over the square root of 25. 9 is a perfect square. So perfect square meaning that it's the same number being multiplied. And so 3 times 3 equals 9. So therefore the square root of 9 is 3. And same with 25. 25 is also a perfect square of 5. So I didn't have to make any factor tree. If you would like to make a factor tree, you can. But in this case, we didn't have to because they were perfect squares. And so 3 over 5 will be my final answer. Alright, let's try that with number 8. We have the square root of 16 over the square root of 49. So these square roots are already separated. We do not have to go back and make a big fraction in a big radical. We can leave it as is. So the square root of 16, that's a perfect square, is 4, and the square root of 49 is perfect square, 7. So that means 4 times 4 is 16. 7 times 7 is 49. So it's a perfect square, no radical left over. Alright, so 9 and 10 are you tries. This is another opportunity for you to pause the video and try those problems. Alright, now that you had a chance to pause and try the video, go ahead and take a look at the solutions. And then if you need to pause the video to kind of look to see how I did it, we can go ahead and move on. Real quick, the square root of 20, I went and made the factor tree right there. So I can simplify that radical.